What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. And in today's episode, we're covering one tackle box that's going to cover all of your needs no matter where you're going fishing. So let's dive right into it. So when it comes to fishing, whether it's a place that you know or a place that you've never been to, the hardest part is knowing what tackle to pack. Some of you might not have that much tackle. Some of you might have your own dang tackle shop in your garage or basement like myself. But the hardest part is choosing what to take when you're going to a body of water. So in today's video, I'm gonna break down one tackle box plus a little bag, but one tackle box that's gonna cover all of your needs no matter where you're going fishing. And that way you're not taking everything, including the kitchen sink, to a body of water. Now, the nice thing about this is it's gonna cover no matter what kind of angler you are. If you're a bank angler, a kayak angler, a john boat angler, a bass boat angler, this is gonna have you guys covered no matter what kind of angler that you are. So we're gonna talk about some factors that you need to consider, that you need to look into before you go fishing. When it comes to going fishing at a body of water, there are two major factors that you need to hit when picking out baits. Now, that's whether it's a lake that you know or don't know. There's two things that you guys have to make sure you cover. And if you can cover those with the baits that you take, you should be able to catch fish no matter what. I'm gonna dive into this box in a second and show you guys, but the two major things are water depth and water clarity. So if you can cover the water depth, that means you have baits for on the bottom, you have baits for the middle of the water column, and you have baits for the top. That's one thing you have to make sure you cover. And the second point you have to cover is water clarity. And that is dirty water or clean water. Depending on what body of water you are on, there could be really clean or it could be really dirty, or different sections of that lake could be clean or dirty as well. So you want to make sure that you have baits that cover both that. And on top of that, one thing you also should have is moving baits and slow baits, and make sure you have those that also hit all of those points as well. So let's dive right into this box and I'll show you guys exactly what I have in this thing that's gonna cover you on everything that you might come across when you're going fishing. Okay, so this right here, this tackle box and this bag of soft plastic is gonna cover me on everything that I need to do. So we're gonna go through the tackle box first and then we'll go through the bag. So right over here is a 3700 size tackle box. I highly recommend one of these ones that have waterproof sealing. You don't want any moisture getting in here and ruining your hooks. Now, when it comes to these baits, you can carry multiple colors and baits of the same one, but this is a generalized, if I'm going somewhere fishing and I don't know exactly what they're gonna catch, you can put a variety of everything in here. And there's still room in here, so I could really fill this up with even more baits, but this is the general rule of thumb. So the first thing that I'm gonna look at is the top of the water column. Now, it might not be the time of year for frogs, so again, you won't have this in here, and you could fill this section up with something else and take more of something else that are better for the water temperature that you're taking, which again, look back at my last video. That's gonna help you out with determining what baits to take on depending on the water temperature. But right here, we got your classic frogs. We got 3 different frogs. Now, when you're throwing a frog, you're usually throwing it on braid. You really don't need anything else, or any extras, I should say, of frogs, because you're throwing it on 50, 60 pound braid usually. So you're not gonna worry about snapping these off. Now, the biggest thing about frog fishing is knowing that the top of these frogs are for you, the fisherman. When you're looking at these, that's what you're buying, that's what's catching your eye, and that's what you're buying. But what you need to do is take the packaging, turn it upside down, and look at the bottom, because when those fish look up, that's what they're looking at. And for frog fishing, I suggest 3 colors. That's all you need: a black, a white, and a green, a natural, a green, a yellow, something that looks more like a natural frog on the bottom. But other than that, that's all 3 colors you need. That's it. And that'll cover your frogs. You could have different sizes if you wanted, but these 3 frogs are gonna cover your frog fishing. Now, while we're on the top water basis, I have buzz baits as well. Same thing with colors. I usually just have a black and a white, but you could also throw in a green or a natural. This is a small compact buzz bait. You could have bigger buzz baits, you know, depending on, you could bring different sizes as well as different colors. Just bring like a smaller white, a bigger black one, whatever. You could do whatever you want, but this is gonna cover you for another top water. And lastly, everyone's favorite, a whopper plopper or a choppo, whatever you prefer, but I have different colors and different sizes. But again, a white, a black, and a natural color. And that is gonna cover all of your top water bases. So that covers the top of the water column. Then you're gonna wanna look for the middle of the water column. So I have a couple different baits here that you can use for that. And it all depends on your water depth. But I have a couple spinner baits in here. I have a white in like chartreuse, and I have like a natural shad pattern, which most of the time your spinner baits are looking like shad. You can find ones that have bluegill colors, perch colors, anything like that. But again, do the research on your lake, like I've said in the last video, and know what forage is in your lake. But if you have these, this is pretty much gonna cover all of your colors. But the nice thing about spinner baits, you could take heavier ones and slow roll it on the bottom. You could take lighter ones and burn it on the surface, or an average weight one and fish it in the middle of the water column. You could throw it around wood. When it comes to grass, we'll get into the chatterbaits, but you know, spinner baits are a great search bait. They're a moving bait, and they can be good for clean water and dirty water. And that's why you have the different colors here as well. If it's really dirty water, you know, you might want a white frog, or if it's really clean, you might want the natural one, or if the lighting condition, they might want the darker colored frogs. There's so many different ways that factors that you can take into it. Let's see, the other middle baits of the water column we have are our jerk baits. Now, of course, you know how it is with treble hooks, but we have jerk baits right here. We have a bright red one. We have a natural one. You could have a natural, an all white one. There's so many different colored jerk baits, but I have two different diving ranges right here. That's another thing you could do. You could bring a normal depth, a deep diving, an extra deep diving, and that covers different depths of the water column as well. So you can get this covered, and then you can fish these all year round. Realistically, the top water, you know, you're not going to fish in the winter unless you get a crazy wintertime top water bite, but that's kind of uncommon. Jerk baits are great all year round, and depending on the depth, if this dives 10 foot and you're fishing 10 foot, this is technically, you could fish it down on the bottom, but you could fish this one that only dives 5, and then you're fishing the middle of the water column, and so on. So you can pretty much cover the entire water column with a jerk bait, with a spinner bait, and you can do it with a chatterbait. So chatterbaits as well, a bladed jig as they like to call it as well. You got the 3 colors, you got white, you got black, and you got natural. Between these 3 colors, you have everything covered. You could have maybe a bluegill instead of a natural green, or a perch color. But again, these are really good for in the grass. I wouldn't fish it around wood. They're more likely to get hung up on wood, but then you have the spinner baits, where spinner baits don't work as great in the grass. Then you bring out the chatterbaits. So that pretty much covers you in the grass when you have really thick grass. And then you have your other moving baits, which are your square bills, your deep diving crankbaits as well, and your lipless crankbaits. So these are all going to have you covered. Again, you can have shad colors, red crawfish colors, a little chartreuse in there, depending on the water clarity. You could have bluegill crankbaits. Again, depending on the forage of your body of water, do some research real quick, but these are gonna get you by on no matter where you go. Crankbaits are good for rocks. Liplesses you can rip out of grass, but you can fish these on rocks as well. I mean, it's a moving bait, and these will cover the entire water column. You can have deep diving on the bottom. You can have a square bill, throwing it up shallow. Again, covering all of the water depths. And lastly, you can have bottom baits, which like a hair jig, which isn't necessarily a bottom bait. You could reel a hair jig on the bottom in the cold water. Another thing as well as a jig. You can't go wrong with a jig if you're not throwing a jig. You should be. A jig's going to cover you on a bottom bait. You could throw a swim jig, and then you'd have a moving bait, which could be in the grass or on the bottom. So literally, like I said, you're going to pack this thing full of baits that's going to cover you on every single depth range of the water column, as well as the water clarity. If you can, do some research, and that way you're not packing, if you know the body of water is clean and there hasn't been any rain lately, it's going to be clean. So then you don't even have to pack the dirty water. But this box is going to cover you no matter what. If you aren't able to do any research, if you're just driving home from work and you see a pond and you want to try it, this will have you covered no matter what. And then lastly is the bag. And the bag is just to cover up with your soft plastics for trailers or anything else you want to throw. Now, for your hooks and weights, you could have that in your bag. You could put it in your tackle box, or you could bring another smaller little one to have your hooks and weights separate. But you could throw them anywhere, so I didn't really, hooks and weights can go anywhere. Can't go wrong with a drop shot setup. You can't go wrong with some EWG hooks for a Texas rig, whether you want to add a bullet weight to it or not. But I have some baits in here that are going to have you covered on all things. You should always have some type of swim baits, whether it's a small one or a big one. Again, white and like a natural shad color. That'll cover you for moving baits. You could throw this on a tiny jig head, reel it fast and keep it in the middle of the water column. You could burn it on the top, or you could slowly reel it and bounce it off the bottom. As well as flipping baits. You can't go wrong with some natural flipping baits. These are some OG Berkeley Havocs. You guys, if you know, you know. These things are awesome. These are the juice, but you can use this for flipping into trees or punching it in through grass, thick grass, or you can put it as a trailer on a jig or whatever else. So that's gonna cover that. Can't go wrong, of course, with your Senkos, the Yum Dingers. I have green pumpkin, black and blue. Covers both different water qualities. I can Texas rig it. I can wacky rig it. Now, personally, I like to wacky rig weightless Yamamoto because of the salt content. I think it gets more bites. But if I'm going to add any weight to a Senko, I'm just going to throw a Yum Dinger because, hey, they're cheaper and that weight's going to take away the action anyway. So having one of each kind, black and blue, green pumpkin, that's going to have you covered on the Senkos. Lastly, I like to have some flukes. I use the Rabbit Baits Rab Shad. These are some, throw them weightless on the EWG, fish it like a fluke, or it'll cover as a chatterbait trailer, a spinnerbait trailer, swim jig trailer, anything like that. It'll actually cover as well for trailers for some of the baits that are in the tackle box. And what else we got? We got some crawls in here from Rabbit Baits. I like to throw these on a finesse jig trailer, my jigs that are in the box, but you can throw this on a Ned rig. This one's small enough to throw it on a Ned rig so it can cover as multiple baits that you're throwing. So little multi-use here with these crawls. And then lastly, we talked about the drop shot rig. You can bring your favorite drop shot bait. Mine is the Fox Shot from Rabbit Baits, but you could also throw this on a little jig head minnow and do a little hover strolling out there in a pond, or if you have electronics, you could use forward-facing sonar and use it, but that will cover your minnowing, your drop shotting, and that's pretty much it, guys. That'll cover you no matter what you need to throw. So there we have it, a walkthrough of a tackle box that's gonna cover all of your needs no matter where you go fishing. I hope this helped you guys out because it's tough to pick out how much tackle you wanna take, what kind of tackle, but this is gonna cover you on all the water clarities, all the water depths, and pretty much all the bass fishing techniques. And if you can't catch fish on any of these baits that you take, well, they're either not biting or that lake has no fish in it. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, subscribe down below. I appreciate all the continued support, and all my bass fishing gear, all my fishing gear in general is always linked down in the description below. If you guys are ever wondering what I use, it's linked down there in the description. Hope you guys are excited for some future videos. Tournament season finally started. We had our first tournament last weekend, and that is going to be the next video that you guys see coming out, and we had a pretty awesome day, so I hope you're excited for that. We'll see you guys on the next one. Go out there and catch your personal best. Have fun.